If you're a composer or a producer wondering whether starting or continuing to write library music in the current climate is still a viable path, this is the video for you. I started writing library music back in 2016. Even if I write a lot less than I used to write 5 or 6 years ago, it's still part of my well-diversified portfolio of income streams as I get as a composer and sound designer. And I have 700-800 tracks with different publishers. I also own and run Sonora Cinematic, a company that makes cinematic sample libraries and that, as such, relies on selling them to composers and producers that can use them on their music. Library music is an important market for these composers. If they don't have a market, I don't have a market. So I am very interested in the future of this part of the music business from a variety of angles. With all the talk about saturated libraries, shrinking royalties, and AI-generated music, I think it's easy to feel discouraged. But today we're going to unpack the reality, the challenges, the opportunities, and most importantly, we'll see how to approach library music strategically in 2025 and 2026 and the future. Let's get into it. Despite what you might hear, library music is not dead. I'd even go as far as to say it's alive and well. TV shows, YouTube videos, podcasts, corporate videos, games, ads, they all still need music, and the opportunities for placements are a lot more than they were even just 5 years ago. And while the big things from trailers to Super Bowl commercials are highly competitive, there's still a massive demand for functional music. If you can consistently deliver high quality tracks that solve a specific problem for editors, showrunners, and producers, there's still money to be made. This is a solid gig that can generate a good income stream that can last a long time. I hate and seriously question the accuracy of the term passive income, but without a huge catalog and having stopped writing library music consistently now 5 years ago, I am still getting low 5 figures every year from it. I don't have the exact data, but maybe $20,000-$25,000 every year, which is most definitely a nice extra. But the game has changed. I think we all need a very honest reality check. As I said, I started in 2016, and back then there was already a strong feel that the golden years for this non-glamorous yet very remunerative business were behind us. And now there are new challenges. First, the market is increasingly crowded, and there are more musicians than ever uploading music to libraries, and there are more libraries than ever. We have amazing tools to make music. These tools are cheap and often free. There is a lot more accessible knowledge that teaches you everything from recording techniques to music theory, from strategies to make it in the music business to legal help to set up a music publishing entity. This is all great and a statement to the beauty of internet, with the side effect of a lot more competition. Royalties have also dropped dramatically. When I got into the industry, I remember old blog articles by composers complaining about cable TV, which is nothing more than a vague concept for most of us. Well, I wonder what they think now of the tiny payments for online content and streaming. Back-end income from performance royalties isn't what it used to be. And finally, the big elephant in the room. AI is creeping in big time. AI is getting closer every day to being able to generate music of very good quality. Some would argue it's already there. There are a number of legal and practical issues with using AI-generated music for commercial purposes, and the regulatory framework is taking shape slowly as we assist to this incredible technological revolution. We don't know exactly how it will be disruptive, but I think we can safely assume it will be, and it's important to be aware of the danger and follow its development. All these things considered, writing library music is still a good idea. Let's go through some stuff. There are some pieces of advice that have always applied to library music, and these are still very much valid. This gig is the right fit for you if and only if you are looking for a long-term income stream rather than a quick win. You enjoy working fast but well, producing high-quality music across genres that are functional to the type of shows that use library music, and if you're disciplined enough to build a catalog with hundreds of tracks over time. We've all heard this stuff. These are the basic requirements, really. If you're starting this now, you need a little more strategic guidance. First, while I think it's good to try out a lot of different genres, I think focusing early on a good niche is a very good idea. So the challenge becomes trying to understand what makes a good niche. There are a lot of different ways you can go about this. In my personal view, the very first element to consider is whether the niche you want to focus on requires producing music in a style that doesn't burn you out. If you want to focus on writing music aimed at sport content, you'd better be very good at writing a lot of hip-hop, heavier rock styles, and high-energy, hybrid orchestral music. While I love all these three genres, people always seem very surprised when they realize how much hip-hop I listen to. That's music that I personally find pretty demanding to write, for example. You're going to have to write hundreds of tracks if you want to make it, so they better be in your musical vocabulary and they better be something that you truly enjoy producing. I would also ponder whether the niche you're going to spend a lot of time in is oversaturated, and this is hard because I genuinely cannot think of a single niche that isn't saturated right now. At this point, you kind of have to think a little bit outside of the box. One thing I had success with is to work out a popular style of production music track and put a twist on it to make it a little more unique. An example could be a tension music track made exclusively or predominantly with vocal elements, keeping pulsing synths and staccato strings out of the way. In fact, the very first ideas of what then became our virtual instrument aria vocalscapes came exactly from me writing this type of cue. Another one could be a drum cue made with a heavy rock instrumentation. I am obviously making stuff up, but hopefully you get what I mean. The idea is to avoid generic sounding music. It's too late for that. The library music industry has evolved from these days, and that stuff doesn't work anymore. The other thing that I would keep in mind is to be very careful with the kind of publishers you work with. You want a label with a good reputation and with a consistent history of high quality placements, but pay also attention to the type of deal they offer. You still find a lot of online advice mentioning the need to stay with non-exclusive libraries. Your mileage might vary, but in my opinion that model is disappearing quickly, and when it still exists, it's not nearly as successful as good exclusive libraries are. And if you're new to this, just a clarification that non-exclusive library doesn't mean that you as a writer are exclusive to the roster of composers and can't write for someone else. It just means that the actual tracks that you write for them are exclusive to that specific library. Another thing I would be very wary of is writing music for royalty-free libraries. Royalty-free is a confusing and misunderstood term, but here we're talking about big online marketplaces that sell huge amounts of tracks for cheap. You know them, Audio Jungle, Pond5, and so on. This is also a dying model that not only will be the first to be wiped out by AI production music when and if a solution to the legal challenges we talked about earlier comes, it's also one that hasn't been lucrative for the musicians involved for quite a long time. So in short, go for well-established, reputable, exclusive labels with a solid history of placements and with good distribution. And with distribution, I mean that they are distributed by a good sub-publisher in territories they can cover well. If the label is on Universal Production Music, BMG, Warner Chappell, or anything like that, that's typically a good sign. So, assuming you can be very strategic in the way you approach it, you keep your mind open, focused, and assuming you always diversified your income streams, I think library music is still a good, viable corner in the music industry to stay in. I also want to add something I always say to anyone who asks me about library music. This gig is a fantastic opportunity to develop your writing skills. It teaches you to write fast, well, in different genres, and stick into a formula, which, as daunting as it is at first, is an incredible and very useful skill to have. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you did, I would really love it if you could subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified when a new video is out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.